June 20, 1942. Dearest Kitty, let me get started right away. It's nice and quiet now. Father and mother are out and Margaret has gone to play ping pong with some other young people at her friend Therese's. I've been playing a lot of ping pong myself lately, so much that five of us girls have formed a club. It's called the Little Dipper Minus Two, a really silly name, but it's based on a mistake. We wanted to give our club a special name, and because there were five of us, we came up with the idea of the Little Dipper. We thought it consisted of five stars, but we turned out to be wrong. It has seven like the Big Dipper, which explains the minus two. Als Wagner has a ping pong set, and the Wagners let us play in their big dining room whenever we want. Since we five ping pong players like ice cream, especially in the summer, and since you get hot playing ping pong, our games usually end with, with a visit to the nearest ice cream parlor that allows juice, either Oasis or Delphi. We've long since stopped hunting around for our purses or money. Most of the time, it's so busy in Oasis that we manage to find a few generous young men of our acquaintance or an admirer to offer us some ice cream, then we could eat in a way. You're probably a little surprised to hear me talking about admirers at such a tender age. Unfortunately, or not, as the case may be, his vice seems to be rampant at our school. As soon as a boy asks if he can bicycle home with me and we start talking, 9 times out of 10 I can be sure he'll become enamored enamored on the spot, and he won't let me out of his sight for a second. His ardor eventually cools, especially since I ignore his passionate glances and pedal lightly on my way. If it gets so bad that they start rambling on about asking father's permission, I swerve slightly on my bike, my sachet fall, and the young man feels obliged to get off his bike and hand it to me, by which time I've switched the conversation to another topic. These are the most innocent types, of course. There are two who blow your kisses or try to take hold of your arm, but they're definitely knocking on the wrong door. I get off my bike and either refuse to make further use of their company or act as if I'm insulting and tell them in no certain terms to go on home without me. No uncertain terms to go on home without me. There you are. You've now laid the basis for our friendship until tomorrow. Yours, Anne. Sunday, June 21, 1942. Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quacking in its boots. The reason, of course, is the upcoming meeting in which the teacher decided who'll come up to the next form and who'll be kept back. Half the class is making bets. GZ and I laugh ourselves silly at the two boys behind us, CN and Jack's cockernoots, who have staked their entire vacation saving on their bet. From morning to night, it's "you're going to pass." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." Even G's pleading glances and my angry outburst can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back, but teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. Maybe this time they'll be unpredictable in the right direction for a change. I'm not worried about my girlfriends and myself. We'll make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Anyways, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose hearts. I got along pretty with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject a chatterbox. A chatterbox? What can you write about that? I'd worry about that later, I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. That evening I'd finished the rest of my homework. The note was about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leaving big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a female trait and that I would do my best to keep it under control, but that I would never be able to break myself of the habit since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. This time it was supposed to be an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. However, during the 3rd lesson, he'd finally had enough. Anne Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack Quack Quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. The class roared. I had to laugh too, though I'd nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. It was time to come up with something else, something original. My friend Sam, who is good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse. I jumped for joy. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with the ridiculous subject, but I'd make sure the joke was on him. I finished my poem, and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they croaked too much. Luckily, Keesing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, I've been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, Keesing's always making jokes these days. Yours, Anne. Wednesday, June 24, 1942. Dearest Kitty, it's sweltering. Everyone is huffing and puffing, and in this heat, I have to walk everywhere. Only now do I realize how pleasant a tram is. But we Jews are no longer allowed to make use of this luxury. Our own 2 feet are good enough for us. Yesterday at lunchtime, I had an appointment with the dentist on Jan Lykenstraat. It's a long way from our school on Stadstimmer Sweden. The afternoon, I nearly fell asleep at my desk. Fortunately, people automatically offer you something to drink. The dental assistant is really kind. The only mode of transportation left to us is the ferry. The ferryman at Joseph Israel Cade took us across when we asked him to. It's not the fault of the Dutch that we Jews are having such a bad time. I wish I didn't have to go to school. My bike was stolen during Easter holiday, and father gave mother's bike to some Christian friends for safekeeping. Thank goodness summer holidays are almost here. 1 more week and our torment will be over. Something unexpected happened yesterday morning as I was passing the bicycle tracks. I heard my name being called. I turned around and there was a nice boy I'd met the evening before at my friend Wilma's. He's Wilma's second cousin. I used to think Wilma was nice, which she is, but all she ever talks about is boys, and that gets to be a bore. He came toward me, somewhat shyly, and introduced himself as hello. Silverberg. I was a little surprised and wasn't sure what he wanted, but it didn't take me long to find out. He asked if I would allow him to accompany me to school. As long as you're headed that way, I'll go with you, I said. And so we walked together. Hello is 16 and good at telling all kind of funny stories. He was waiting for me again this morning, and I expected he will be from now on. Wednesday, July 1, 1942. Dearest Kitty, until today I honestly couldn't find the time to write you. I was with friends all day. Thursday we had company on Friday, and that's how it went until today. Hello and I got to know each other very well this past week, and he's told me a lot about his life. He comes from Gelsenkirchen and is living with his grandparents. His parents were in Belgium, but there's no way he can get there. Hello used to have a girlfriend named Ursula. I know her too. She's perfectly sweet and perfectly boring. Ever since he met me, Hello has realized that he's been falling asleep at Ursula's side. So I'm kind of a pep tonic. You never know what you're good for. Jack spent Saturday night here. Sunday afternoon she was at Hanley's and I was bored stiff. Hello was supposed to come over the evening, but he rang about 6. I answered the phone and he said, "This is Helmut Silverberg. May I speak to Anne? Hello, this is Anne. Oh, hello, Anne. How are you? Very well, thanks. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, but I can't come tonight, though I would like to have a word with you. Is it alright if I come by and pick you up in 10 minutes? Yes, it's fine. Bye-bye. Okay, I'll be here over. Bye-bye. I hung up quickly, changed my clothes, and did my hair. I was so nervous I leaned out of the window to watch over for him. He finally showed up, miracle of miracles. I didn't rush down the stairs, but waited quietly until he rang the bell. I went down to open the door and he got right to the point. "Anne, my grandmother thinks you're too young for me to be seeing you on a regular basis. She says I should be going to the Lowen batch. But you probably know that I'm not going out with Ursula anymore." "No, I don't know. What happened? Did you two have an argument?" "No, nothing like that. I told Ursula that we weren't suited to each other and so it was better for us not to go together anymore, but that she will come at my house and I hoped I would be welcomed at hers. Actually, I thought Ursula was hanging around with another boy and I treated her as if she were. But that wasn't true, and that my uncle said I should apologize to her, but of course I didn't feel like it, and that's why I broke up with her. But that was just one of the reasons. Now my grandmother wants me to see Ursula and not you, but I don't agree, and I'm not going to. Sometimes old people are really old-fashioned ideas, but that doesn't mean I have to go along with them. I need my grandparents, but in a certain sense they need me too. From now on, I'll be free on Wednesday evening. You see, my grandparents made a sign up for a wood carving class, but actually I go to a club organized by the Zionists. My grandparents don't want me to go because they're anti-Zionists. I'm not a fanatical Zionist, but it interests me. Anyway, it's been such a mess lately and I'm planning to quit, so next Wednesday will be my last meeting. That means I can see you Wednesday evening, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday afternoon, and maybe even more. But if your grandparents don't want you to, you shouldn't go behind their backs. All's fair in love and war. Just then we passed Blankenwood's bookstore, and there was Peter Schiff with 2 other boys. It was the first time he'd said hello to me in ages, and it really made me feel good. Monday evening, Hello came over to meet my father and mother. I had bought a cake and some sweets, and we had tea and biscuits. That works, but neither Hello nor I felt like sitting stiffly on our chairs, so we went out for a walk. But we went out for a walk, and he didn't deliver me to my door until 8:10. Father was furious. He said it was wrong for me not to get home on time. I had to promise to be home by 10 to 8 in the future. I've been asked to Hello's Saturday. Wilma told me that one night when Hello was at her house, she asked him, "Who do you like best, Ursel or Anne?" He said, "It's none of your business." But as he was leaving, they hadn't talked to each other the rest of the evening. He said, "Well, I like Anne better, but don't tell anyone." Bye, and whoosh, he was out of the door. In everything he says or does, I can see that Hello is in love with me, and it's kind of nice for a change. Margaret would say that Hello is a decent sort. I think so too. But he's more than that. Mother is also full of praise. A good-looking boy, nice and polite. I'm glad he's so popular with everyone except with my girlfriends. He thinks they're very childish, and he's right about that. Jack still teases me about him, but I'm not in love with him. Not really. It's all right for me to have boys as friends. Nobody minds. Mother is always asking me who I'm going to marry when I grow up, but I bet she'll never guess it's Peter. Because I talked her out of that idea myself without batting an eyelash. I love Peter and I've never loved anyone, and I tell myself he's only going around with all those other girls to hide his feelings for me. Maybe he thinks Hello and I are in love with each other, which we're not. He's just a friend, or as Mother puts, it's a suitor. Yours, Anne. Sunday, July 5, 1942. Dear Kitty, the examination results were announced in the Jewish Theater on Friday. My report card wasn't too bad. I got 1D, a C in algebra, and all the rest B's except for 2 B pluses and 2 B minuses. My parents are pleased, but they're not like other parents when it comes to grades. They never worry about reports, good or bad. As long as I'm healthy and happy and not too cheeky, they're satisfied. If these 3 things are all right, everything else will take care of itself. I'm just the opposite. I didn't want to be a bad pupil. I was expected to the Jewish Lyceum on the conditional basis. I was supposed to stay at the Montessori school, but when Jewish children were required to go to Jewish schools, Mr. Elt finally agreed, after a great deal of persuasion, to accept Lice, Gosler, and me. Lice also passed this year, though she had to repeat her geometry exam. Poor Lice, it isn't easy for her to study at home. Her baby sister, a small little 2-year-old, plays in her room all day. If Gabby didn't get her way, she starts screaming, and if Lice doesn't look after her, Mrs. Gosler starts screaming. So, Lice has a hard time doing her homework, and as long as that's the case, the extra tuition she's been getting won't help much. The Gosler household is really a sight. Mrs. Gosler's parents live next door, but each with the family. There's a hired girl, the baby. The always absent-minded and absent Mr. Gosler, and the always nervous and irritable Mrs. Gosler, who's expecting another baby. Lice, who's all thumbs, get lost in the mayhem. My sister Margaret also gotten her report. Brilliant as usual. If we had such a thing as cum laude, she would have passed with honors. She's so clever. Father has been home a lot lately. There's nothing for him to do at the office. It must be awful to feel you're not needed. Mr. Kleiman has taken over Opecta and Mr. Kugler, Geese and Co., the company dealing in spice and spice substitutes that was set up in 1941. A few days ago, we were taking in a stroll around our neighborhood square. Father began to talk about going into hiding. He said it would be very hard for us to live cut off from the rest of the world. I asked him why he was bringing this up now. Well, Anne, he replied, you know that for more than a year we've been standing our clothes. Wait. Well, Anne, he replied, you know that for more than a year we've been sending our clothes, food and furniture to other people. We don't want our belongings to be seized by the Germans, nor do we want to fall into their clutches ourselves. So leave of our own accord and not wait to be hauled away. But when, Father? He sounded so serious that I felt scared. Don't you worry, we'll take care of everything. Just enjoy your carefree life while you can. That was it. Oh, may these somber words not come true for as long as possible. The doorbell's ringing. Hello. There's time to stop. Hello's there. Hello's here. Time to stop. Yours Anne. Wednesday, July 8, 1942. Dearest Kitty, it seems like yours since Sunday morning, so It seems like years since Sunday morning. So much happened. It's as if the whole world has suddenly turned upside down. But as you can see, Kitty, I'm still alive, and that's the main thing. Father says I'm alive, all right. But don't ask where or how. You probably don't understand a word I'm saying today, so I'll begin telling you what happens today afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Hello had left but was supposed to come back later. The doorbell rang. I didn't hear it since I was out on the balcony, lazily reading in the sun. A little while later, Margaret appeared in the kitchen doorway looking very agitated. Father has received a call-up notice from the SS, she whispered. Mother has gone to see Mr. Van Daan. Mr. Van Daan is Father's business partner and a good friend. I was stunned. I call up. Everyone knows what that means. Visions of concentration camps and lonely cells raced through my head. How could we let Father go to such a fate? Of course he's not going, declared Margaret as we waited for Mother in the living room. Mother's gone to Mr. Van Daan to ask whether we can move to our hiding place tomorrow. The Van Daans are going along with us. There will be 7 of us living together. Silence. We couldn't speak. We couldn't speak. The thoughts of Father of visiting someone in the Jewish hospital and completely unaware of what's happening. The long wait for Mother, the heat, the suspense, all this reduced us to silence. Suddenly, the doorbell rang again. That's Hello, I said. Don't open the door, exclaimed Margaret to stop me, but it wasn't necessary since we heard Mother and Dr. Van Daan downstairs talking to Hello, and then the two of them came inside and shut the door behind them. Every time the bell rang, either Margaret or I had to tiptoe downstairs to see if it was Father, and we didn't let anyone else in. Margaret and I were sent from the room as Mr. Van Daan wanted to talk to Mother alone. When she and I were sitting in our bedroom, Margaret told me that the call-up was not for Father, but for her. At the second shock, I began to cry. Margaret is 16. Apparently, they want to send girls her age away on their own. But thank goodness she won't be going. Mother had said so herself, which must be what father had meant when he talked to me about our going into hiding. Hiding where could we hide? In the city, in the country, in a house, in a shack. Where? When? How? These were questions I wasn't allowed to ask, but they still kept running through my mind. Margaret and I started picking our most important belongings into a sachet. The first thing I stuck in was the diary, and then curlers, handkerchiefs, school books, a comb, and some old letters. Preoccupied by the thought of going into hiding, I stuck the craziest things in the bag. But I'm not sorry. Memories mean more to me than dresses. Father finally came home around 5 o'clock, and we rang Mr. Kleiman to ask if he could come by the evening. Mr. Van Dam left and went to get Maip. Maip arrived and promised to return later that night, taking with her a bag full of shoes, dresses, jacket, underwear, and stockings. After that, it was quiet in our flat. None of us felt like eating. It was still hot, and everything was very strange. We had rented our big upstairs room to a Mr. Goldschmidt, a divorced man in his 30s. Who apparently had nothing to do that evening, since despite all our polite hints, he hung around until 10 o'clock. Maip and Jangis came at 11. Maip, who's worked for father's company since 1933, has become a close friend, and so has her husband. Jan, once again, shoes, stocking, books, and underwear disappeared into Maip's bag and Jan's deep pockets. At 11:30, they too disappeared. I was exhausted, and even though I knew it would be my last night in my own bed, I fell asleep right away and didn't wake up until Mother called me at 5:30 the next morning. Unfortunately, it wasn't as hot as Sunday. Fortunately, it wasn't as hot as Sunday. A warm rain fell throughout the day. The four of us were wrapped in so many layers of clothes it looked as if we were going off to spend the night in a refrigerator, and all that just so we could take more clothes with us. No Jew in our situation would dare leave the house with a suitcase full of clothes. I was wearing 2 vests, 3 pairs of pants, a dress, and over that a skirt, a jacket, a raincoat, 2 pairs of stockings, heavy shoes, a cap, a scarf, and a lot more. I was suffocating even more before we left the houses, but no one bothered to ask me how I felt. Margaret stuffed her school bag with school books, went to get her bicycle, and Margaret stuffed her school bag with school books, went to get her bicycle, and with Mia leading the way, rode off into the great unknown. At any rate, that's how I thought of it, since I still didn't know where our hiding place was. At 7:30, we two closed the door behind us. Marchie, my cat, was the only living creature I said goodbye to. According to a note we left for Mr. Goldschmidt, she was to be taken to the neighbors who would give her a good home. The strip bed, the breakfast things on the table, the pound of meat for the cat in the kitchen, all of these created the impression that we left in a hurry, but we weren't interested in impression. We just wanted to get out of there, to get away and reach our destination in safety. Nothing else mattered more tomorrow. Your ends.